All right, we're back to finish up our creepy eyes Codevember sketch for today. So the last thing I wanted to do here was set it up so that we will have 3 eyes. Oops, excuse me. But every so often one of them will go away and a new one will replace it. So let's think through how we're going to set this up. So we'll have our list of eyes, and at a certain point, we'll want to take one of the eyes out and have it start animating away. And we'll also have another eye coming in. So I think the best way to model this is going to be to just have separate fields for each of those. And then we can have some update functions that happen as each thing starts or completes. So let's have a departing eye, which will be a tuple with an X and a Y position, and also an I. And I think we're also going to need to know when it started departing so that we can correctly run our animation. So let's use a time for that. And we'll have an appearing eye, which will be the same thing. It'll have a time that it started appearing, and a float, and a float, and an eye. And also these are both going to be maybes, because we won't always have one of these. It's probably a good point at this moment to consider whether we would want these to be lists instead of maybes, because if they were lists, lists would allow us to have multiple eyes coming and going at different points in the future. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just thinking through if that would be worth it. It would be more flexible. I think it would be a little more work, particularly in the update function to kick off and end these specific eyes, finishing and starting these transitions. So I'm going to leave this as maybes for now, but if I were doing this for a serious project, although I haven't had many serious projects that needed random eyes animating, but if I were, I'd probably consider making this a list right off the bat. But for now, let's just have it be a maybe. Alright, so then in our initial model, our departing eye will be nothing, and our appearing eye will also be nothing to start with. Then what else? Well, so that's enough to get things started. So what do we want to do here? I think every so often we're going to trigger a new message. So let's do a time.every and say maybe every 10 seconds we're going to change eye. So at that moment, we're going to get a, let's stick this one here, a change eye message with time, with the time that it happens at. And when we get that, okay, so let's implement that. Change eye t. And I'll call that now. I should really call these other ones now as well. Okay, so when we get one, we're going to do something to our model. So I guess what we want to do is start making one of the eyes disappear. So let's grab the first eye out of the list. And we're going to use list.head, which gives us a maybe. Oh, actually we're going to destructure the list, because we'll need the remaining items in the list as well. So we'll have our model.eyes, and if we have an empty list, then we'll just return the model and command.none, because there's nothing we can do. Well, I guess we could start a new eye. We'll get to that in a second, though. And if we have a list which has a first element and other elements, then, whoops, I lost my cursor position. Then we're going to do some manipulation here. And let's see, we're going to take our model and we're going to make the disappearing eye equal to just a tuple. And we have the now, and we have the, we're going to destructure this stuff. So this is the point and the eye. So we're going to stick that in there, and then we're also going to change in here the eyes to be just the rest of the eyes. So we're basically going to pop one of the eyes off of our list and convert it to a disappearing eye and leave the other eyes in the list. So that's one thing to do. Let's see. So then when we have our disappearing eye, we want to display that. So let's go to our view function. View, where is that defined? Up here. Okay. So here we're taking all of these current eyes. Let's stick those into a group. Oh, I see. We want to take all of those. Okay. So actually we want a collage.group here, and we're going to have a couple things. We're going to have all of the persisting eyes. Then let's also check and render our disappearing eye. So that's a maybe, so we'll have to destructure that. So if we get nothing, then we'll just stick in an empty collage.group. And if we get just an eye, so we have the start time that it started disappearing, we have the X and the Y, and we have the I. Okay, so if we get that, then we're going to use the start time along with an animation to show the eye, but we're also going to make it disappear slowly. So I think, let's see, is there like an opacity thing on collage? I'm hoping there is. Alpha. Set the alpha of a form. Okay. So let's just put it at 0.5 for the moment so we can test it out, but this is a property we're going to be animating in a minute. Alright, and what did I mess up here? Collage.group. The second, oh, okay, right. And then we need to take this list that we get up here and put that into a group as well. And now what's wrong? So the right argument, what is it talking about? The right argument of what is causing a mismatch? It wants a collage.form, but the right argument takes a list of collage.forms. I'm not sure where it's complaining about the error. Here. Oh, I see. We don't need this group at the top level. There we go. Oh, and I called it departing I instead of disappearing I. I think disappearing is better. And I spelled disappearing wrong, didn't I? Okay, 1S, 2Ps. Got it. Okay. So here's our I's. Okay, and we also have these in the wrong order. So after 10 seconds, this first pink I went away, or like faded to half transparency. Okay, and the ordering is wrong, so when we do our view, our disappearing I goes underneath all the other I's. Okay, and then our dev server died. Let's start it up again. Okay. So now, every 10 seconds, one of the I's will start to fade out, but our fade is not particularly smooth yet. Well, it's not smooth at all. So when we view this alpha, we want to animate. So we want to do let's see. I guess we can just calculate this ourselves. I was thinking we could use the animation library. I'm kind of not sure how straightforward that would be to do. Let's try it, I guess. So we'll have animation.animation. Starting, this animation starts at the start time from our disappearing data. Then we're going to have animation.from 1.0 to 0.0, and the duration is, let's say maybe 2 seconds. And then we're going to animate using the current time. And then, okay, we need to import animation. Okay, so there's our 3 I's, and let's see if they properly animate away this time. Oh. So it faded out, but then as soon as the animation was done, it was shown as visible again. Let's see what other options there are in the animation library. We basically want it to stick to the final value when it finishes. Not sure why it doesn't do that by default. So I guess we just need to put an if statement in here and check if it is done. That's kind of unfortunate. let's try just, let's see. So let's take this animation. We'll stick that in here. Equals that. And we'll also say if animation.isDone at the current time, then we'll just put an empty group in here. Otherwise, we'll do our actual I. Okay. Is done. Oh, right. We need to give it the animation. Okay. So there's the 3 I's. And that one faded away. Great. And then it stayed gone. Good. Okay. So I think that's working. Next, we need to add a way to show an I appearing. So in this case, when we change I's, we want to generate a new I. And we're going to have a new separate value for this. So the new I's one just resets. So why don't we rename this to be called reset I's. And then this new message we'll just call new I, and it's going to just have a single new I with a location. So in our change I, here we're going to random.generate, and we're going to make a random I, and when we get it, we will produce the new I message with it. And then we need to handle the new I. Whoops. Message, and if we get that, we'll take our model and we will stick in, and we'll make this one the appearing I. And we also need a time here. So this is going to be a time. Then the new I's, the appearing I, is going to equal just, and the start, and the X, Y, and the I. And we also need command.none in here. Okay. So next, we need to actually show the appearing I. So that'll go in our view. And this will basically be the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this for now. This could easily be refactored, but we'd have to be a bit careful about kind of the direction of these arguments. Okay, so if we have an appearing I, then we'll show it animating in from 0 to 1. Interesting. And then it disappears at the end. Yeah, so we don't need this if statement in this case. Because when this animation finishes, we want to show it. Yeah, okay. So there we have our eyes appearing. So the problem now is that when the eye finishes animating, we need to stick it into the real list of eyes. So I guess we're going to need to do that in our update function in the tick. And I guess also to do that, we need to pull out this alpha animation to the top so that we can refer to it. Except I guess it needs the start time. That's interesting. So I guess what we'll have to do here is take the 2000 and let's stick that at the top level and call it appear time. And that's a float. Then in our update function, whenever we get a tick, we'll need to check if we need to update or if we have an appearing eye that's ready to finish. So let's write that here. And we'll call it promote appearing eye. And we'll define that up here. Promote appearing eye takes a model and gives back a model. And what we need to do is check if we have an appearing eye in the model, if its time is, if it's finished appearing, then we will move it into the real list and clear out the appearing eye field. Hey Pneumatics, welcome to the chat. I actually mostly have done Java for most of my life, and I have been doing Elm stuff like you see here for the past couple of years. But I've done a lot of Java and Android and iOS and Ruby. So I guess I did some Objective-C for iOS, but I have used C in the past, but I haven't done a lot of real work with it. All right, so our promote appearing eye, we'll do a case statement on the model.appearing eye. And if we don't have one, then great. We'll just give back the model. And if we do have one, actually this has multiple things in it. We have the start time, the X, Y, and the I. So if we do have one, we'll say if the start time plus the appear time, which we defined at the top of the file, is less than or equal to model.now, then we're going to advance and promote the appearing eye into the real list of eyes. And if it's not, then we're just going to return the normal model. So in here, we'll take model, we'll change appearing eye to be nothing, and we'll change eyes to equal, and we want to stick this at the end of the list so that it's on top of all the other eyes that have already been there. We'll want to say model.eyes plus plus the tuple of X, Y, and the I. Oops. All right. So there we have our new eye fade in. And let's see. Oh, I'm not sure why that one flashed in for a moment. I feel like there's problems with this animation library we're using. Let's see. Yeah, the appearing one keeps flashing in from 0.0 to this. I guess we do need an if statement on here also, like we have up here. And it's just if the animation hasn't started, meaning that it has not yet changed its value. Oops. Okay, let's see that. Cool, well thanks for checking out the stream, Pneumatics. I'll see you in the future. Yeah, okay. That looks good. Cool. So let's commit this. And I've still got a little bit of, whoops. Oh yeah, we deleted all that commented code. Okay. Transition new eyes in and out. Cool. So the last thing I'd like to do is add a background to this. And what I'm thinking I'd like to try to do is actually use the background that I created. I forget which day it was on. Let's take a look in here. So day 12 was that. Okay. Is this screenshot gonna load? Yeah, this was our Codevember project from a couple days ago. So I'd like to try using this WebGL canvas experiment from day 11 as our background for the eyes. Seems to fit kind of the creepy theme here. So let's see. I think I'm just going to try to take this file, copy it over here, and try to just strip it down to be our background. We'll call it the trippy background.elm. And let's see, so we're not going to need any of these comments. We're not going to need any of this. We're not going to need the main. All we need is this view function. So view equals that. And I guess we can even take a width and height in here. Let's just call this W and H, since width and height are already used in this context. Okay. So then we don't need any of this. Okay, so we do need the animation frame. So that was one issue with what we just deleted. So where is scene defined? Scene takes a float. And that is the time in seconds. and I guess that goes last. So I'm just going to change this to be a pipeline. And we're going to expose the view. And I guess we will also switch over to using request animation frame instead of our time.every, which is actually probably better anyway. Let's see. So our subscriptions here was this, animation frame dot whatever. So let's check the docs for that real quick. Animation frame, that comes from ElmLive. And we want times. Whereas the diffs one just gives you the amount of time that elapsed since the last frame. Okay, and we want the actual timestamps here. Okay, so we'll fix up our main in day 13 for our subscription. So rather than time.every for the tick, we're going to use animation frame.times, and we'll import animation frame. And that should actually be better for our app anyway. Then we've got our trippy background. So let's see if we can stick this in now. So in our view, we have this whole thing, which goes in an HTML. Let's just rename this to call this eyes view. And then we'll have our real view, which will take a model and give back HTML message. And our real view is going to be an HTML.div. And we'll need some attributes, I think, because we'll want to stack these on top of each other. And then we're going to have our trippy background.view, which will take a width and a height and a time t, which is supposed to be in seconds. So I'm going to divide that by 1,000. And then we'll also show our eyes view with the model. Okay, and I think those aren't going to stack exactly correctly yet. And we also need to import our trippy background, which comes from day 13. Which reminds me, I did not name that properly. In here, this module is now day 13.trippybackground. And okay, so we have both things showing. So we want to get those to overlay on top of each other. We should be able to do that with some fun divs in HTML. So we're going to have position relative on this. Then we're going to have another div. Oops. Around each of these, and this will be position absolute. And we need to import HTML attributes package. Okay, so we have those composed together. What I'm unsure about is why the background is not animating. I guess it's probably because we're not passing the right value into it. Okay, so we don't have any console errors. And the way trippy background works is the scene takes a T and it passes that through to the vertex shaders. Okay, so we should be able to debug.log the T here and see what's going on. And we're definitely getting a value. So maybe it's just too small of a value. So let's check on day 11, and in here, it was constantly adding the time over 1,000. Okay. So let's try this. If we go back to our actual main, let's just pass the full time. Rather than dividing by 1,000. Huh. No, that still didn't do anything. I guess before we debug this any further, I'm just going to clean our build folder. The Elm stuff / build artifacts, and start it up again. And let that compile. So model.now is changing because we're seeing our eyes blink. Is this number just too large to get past to OpenGL for some reason? I guess that's a possibility. Because when we use this as that example, these values would start at 0 when the app started up. So that's potentially a problem. So we can try subtracting that value before we send it in. Okay, and then the reload server is running. Alright, so let's save this with the subtraction in there. Unexpected token var. An uncaught error Elm is not defined. Well, that doesn't sound good. There we go. Okay. So that apparently was the problem. So now we can divide this by 1,000. I guess we were sending values that were too large into OpenGL. So that is something I was not really expecting. But in any case, there is our final result. And if we wait a few seconds, yeah, there's an eye going away and a new one fading in. Let's see. Let's add one slight change to, let's see. So we don't need animation frame in here. Let's add one slight change to our transition when we have the eyes animate away. Let's try also scaling these. Collage.scale. And we'll use the same value in there. And see if the eye will fade out also while it's, oops, I missed it. Yeah, there we go. And let's see, I don't want it to fade all the way down. That's the problem here. And you can tell when it's getting time for me to end the stream because I start being really quiet, huh? Let's see. Yeah, so I'd like this to not scale the entire way. So I guess we should say we'll multiply that by 0.7 or by 0.3, and then we'll add 0.7 to it. That I think should work. We'll do the same thing up here. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Well, that's going to be it for today. So thanks for tuning in. And if anybody's doing Codevember projects themselves or any other Elm projects, be sure to let me know on Twitter. I'd love to see it. And if you also have thoughts about politics or any of the stuff I was talking about earlier today, be sure to let me know as well. Oh, Kalpchak, you made it just too late. So I'll have the videos for this posted probably later today, if not tomorrow. So in any case, you can see our crazy result for the day. So thanks for spending time in the chat as well, and I will see you all well next time. I will be doing another stream at this time next Sunday as normal, but I will also be streaming kind of ad hoc for every day in the rest of November as well, doing more creative coding projects for Codevember. So if you want to hear about those, either follow on Twitch or follow me on Twitter, and you can see the notifications of when I'm streaming short stuff at the last minute. So thanks. I will see you all next time. Bye.